Bozeman Scat, also known as Bushman's Hole, is a deep, submerged freshwater sinkhole in the northern Cape Province of South Africa. It is believed that Mike Rathburn, who was then an amateur diver, was the first diver who explored the Bushman's Hole in 1977. It is seen as a very challenging dive because of its altitude, which is more than 4,921 feet 1,500 meters. He didn't survive the accident. In 1994, Nuno Gomes led a diving team for dive training in preparation for the technical diving they planned to do in the week that followed. Deon Dreer was invited for this dive. They set out for the training on December 17, 1994, at the Bushman's Hole. As they made their dives into the deep water, everyone was enjoying their dives until something went wrong with one of them. It was Deon. He had gotten to a depth of about 164 feet 50 meters from the surface while ascending. The other divers noticed that his light was fading from their sight. Deon was sinking back into the abyss. They tried to rescue him, but before they could lay hold of him, he had gone too far. His diving buddies assumed that he might have lost consciousness. When diving to such extreme depths, the partial pressure of oxygen rises to such a level that it becomes toxic to the central nervous system, also known as oxygen toxicity or oxygen poisoning. Deon might have breathed too heavily, resulting in carbon dioxide building up in his lungs, which later made him unconscious. Deon had his last dive in the Bushman's Hole. It was a tragic moment for everyone, as his body was lost in the water. Everyone has almost forgotten about Deon Dreer, whose body is yet to be recovered from the Bushman's Hole. But the plaque his father placed on a rock at the Bushman's Hole kept reminding those that got to this site that Deon's body remains in this sinkhole. Dave Shaw's dive and discovery. Dave Shaw was an Australian scuba diver, technical diver, and airline pilot for Cathay Pacific from 1989, before he started flying for Cathay Pacific. He had flown for the Missionary Aviation Fellowship in Papua New Guinea and Tanzania. He had also flown agricultural aircraft in New South Wales and South Australia. Dave's goal of the Bushman's Hole dive was to push the limit and set a new record. He reached about 900 feet to 174 meters. He spent a few minutes exploring the bottom of the sinkhole. It was an amazing experience for him. Though he experienced some symptoms of narcosis at a depth of 800 feet to 144 meters, he was yet to push through. When he got to about 876 feet to 167 meters, he saw the floor of the sinkhole for the first time, and while exploring the newly discovered world in Bushman's Hole, he stumbled on something. It was a dead body lying underground at his back. It was the body of Deon Dreer, who had dived into the cave 10 years before. His mask was still in place, but some of his body parts no longer had a fleshy covering. Dave was not able to look too closely at his body because it was already hidden in the mud. He was unable to recover the body on that attempt. Dave returned to the surface after a 10-hour dive and told Deon's parents, Theo and Marie, that he had found their son's body. This was unbelievable for the couple at first, but Dave assured them he would return to recover the body from the Bushman's Hole. Dave and Don Shirley, another diver, went for the recovery operation. It was the deepest underwater recovery in history. The two divers made a complex dive plan for the recovery, but they needed up to 9 divers to make the dive. They were worried about recovering a body that must have remained almost a skeleton, and the body could have fallen apart. So they decided to go with a bag to carry Deon's body. The recovery team prepared for the operation. They had all the equipment ready. Dave and Don were acquainted with most of the equipment they were about to use, save the helmet camera that Dave wanted to use. It was a new camera, and he had never used one before. The recovery team all gathered at Bushman's Hole 2 days before the final dive. They were all given their specific roles, and Dave was to go and get the body from the depths where it was lying. Dave instructed the team openly to be careful and not risk their own lives for the sake of getting a body out of the sinkhole in case anything went wrong during the dive. However, Dave and Don had a private agreement to signal with their flashlight in case they needed each other's help in the deep. Dave dove to a depth of 886 feet to 170 meters, the place where he had earlier found the body of Deon. He was supposed to carry the body into the bag and take it to a depth of 725 feet to 121 meters, where Don would be waiting to help bring it to the surface with a decompression of about 10 hours. The people outside the surface were waiting for them, but they could see no sign of anyone from the recovery team coming out with Deon's body. So, Van Schaik knew that something had gone differently from the planned dive, which had caused such a delay. But the exact situation that happened was still unknown to them, so they kept waiting. Deon, who was waiting for Dave at a depth of 725 feet to 121 meters, also became concerned when Dave wasn't showing up. He noticed that no bubbles were coming from around the place where Dave had dived. By now, bubbles were supposed to have been coming from the ascent of Dave, but there was nothing. Then, he saw a light dimly far off, but it wasn't moving. They thought Dave might have been faced with serious narcotics because of the depth he had gone. Narcosis affects one's thinking ability, so when in such a condition, you need to be fully focused to get your mind to think and solve whatever challenges you are facing down there. After waiting for some time, Deon decided to descend to the depth where Dave had dived to see what was happening and how he could help. When he got to about 800 feet to 171 meters, he heard a very loud sound. It was Deon's regulator controller that burst. He had to turn from finding his friend to saving his own life. Deon had to control his air supply manually as he tried returning to the support divers that were above him, so they managed to get back to the surface. Then, Deon told them that Dave couldn't come up, and he had been left down there. A rescue operation started immediately. They got support from the authorities, but it took about 40 hours to get Dave's body out from the bottom of Bushman's hole. He was already dead when they brought his body up. The tragedy of Dave Shaw's death shocked the diving community around the world. Both Dave and Deon's deaths served as a reminder of the risks and dangers involved in deep water diving. Their legacy lives on as cautionary tales, reminding divers to prioritize safety and never underestimate the perils of the underwater world. The story of the Bushman's whole tragedy continues to captivate and intrigue many people. It stands as a testament to the allure and danger of exploring the unknown depths of our planet, serving as a reminder of the fragility of life and the unforgiving nature of the underwater realm.